life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. 3 unalienable rights. But none of them are achievable without housing.
I start with a warm greeting to relax them. I'm an extension of this place, so it's important that it accurately reflects everything it has to offer, because I'm not just helping people find homes. I'm changing their lives. It's a huge responsibility for me to play a small part in that. At the end of the day, I'm just here to help. Under this facade is a pre-war structure. No matter how much you renovate, the framers' original molding remains the same. Sorry. We're selective about who gets in. I mean, back when I was studying for the broker's exam, my fair housing notes were the size of a phone book. I took it very seriously. I got this listing and the super told me that the owners didn't want any trouble in here. I didn't fully understand what he meant at first, but this neighborhood is a melting pot. It didn't make sense to me why the building wouldn't reflect that, but the owners couldn't stomach it. They said they wanted nice people living here and that I should be able to tell over the phone if someone sounds like trouble. So names like Malik or Shaniqua end the call. I needed the money, so I did what I was told. If a few slip through the cracks, I have no problem telling them right to their face. The key is to be polite and friendly, because there's nothing personal about this. It's just the way that things are. If I don't, somebody else will. So, what's the difference? When it comes to doors, as long as there are doors that can be opened, there's going to be someone out there that will always close them. So, if it comes to me being on this side of the door versus that one, I'll choose this side every time.
Hi, I'm here about the 1-bedroom.
Sorry, there's nothing available. You should have called first. You could have saved yourself the trip.
On the phone, you said you had several apartments available.
Sorry, I must have made a mistake. There's nothing available.
What did you say your name was?
Brad.
Thank you, Brad. Housing discrimination used to be a slammed door. Now it sort of just revolves. Unless it's blatant, you really wouldn't know if discrimination is actually happening in the housing market. Well, spoiler alert, it is. That's where testers like me come in. When a case is brought, we are often asked to review the evidence that was collected during the test. It's really difficult to see agents who smiled in your face lie about housing right through their teeth. It can stir up traumatic memories. Sometimes keys can be funny about who they open doors for.
Yeah, the key should be here somewhere unless I left them in the office. This never happens, I swear.
Do you want to reschedule? Again? You're saying even with my $500,000 budget and $650 credit score, I can't see anything without pre-approval? Months later, the Fair Housing Organization said that the white tester I was paired with had the same financial profile I did. That agent showed her 79 listings and 2 homes. It's really degrading to see the differences in treatment between me and the white testers. They get treated like human beings. I get treated like less than, not equal to. The first time I experienced racism, I was walking home from elementary school. This truck full of white men drove up and rolled down their window. They yelled out, "Nigger," and sped off. I grew up in the South, so racism, it can be in your face. But in many ways, the smiling subtlety of the Northern racism can be more vitriolic. One group of degenerates can frighten one little Black girl, but one bank loan officer can forever alter the trajectory of entire Black families for generations. Not getting a loan means buying a lower priced, lower valued home. Less home equity and less ability to acquire long-term wealth. That means African Americans like me are being directed to lower income areas where there's just less opportunities. And when it comes to access for schools, for transportation, for that better paying job, and just basic amenities, everything is limited. And it is not just about the Black home buyer. It is also for their children. It has nothing to do with qualifications and everything to do with their skin. So, which racist act has greater impact? Calling a little girl a nigger or treating her like one? I ran home that day, and even as a child, I knew my life was in danger. Those men meant me harm. The people that I represent when I test, they may never know that their lives were altered by discrimination, but that is the intent. They weaponize the revolving door of racism with their sweet civility. But they might as well just be loading up a revolver to point it at your future. That's the reality I live, whether I am testing or walking in my own neighborhood. But when the recording stops and I pick up the pieces, I do not run home anymore. Go out there onto the battlefield to fight another day.
The fair housing fight is a battlefield, and the advocates on the front lines are soldiers.
Stacy was my best friend growing up. She lived 2 doors down on the right. We chased ice cream trucks every summer and went trick-or-treating every fall. Old Man Pearson handed out king-sized Snickers bars on Halloween. Stacy made the most perfectly round snowballs in the winter. We wished on dandelions every spring. She never told me what she wished for. She said if she did, her wishes would never come true. When Stacy's dad found out my parents sold our house to an interracial family, we weren't allowed to play anymore. Dad took me trick-or-treating that fall, but I didn't get any king-sized Snickers bars from Old Man Pearson. He said if I wanted chocolate, my dad knows where to get it for me. My neighborhood was segregated. When the neighbors found out that that was about to change, they iced my family out. Stacy's dad came over one night to talk my dad out of selling to the new family. The only other time I saw my dad that angry was when the broker said we'd love the new neighborhood because they're very selective about letting in the right kind of people. Dad canceled the appointment on the spot. He said he wouldn't work with people who spoke the soft language of bigotry. That stuck with me. How hatred can be soft. That's why I felt a knot in my stomach when I started to look for a place of my own. A broker took me to a neighborhood where I didn't see one African American in New York City. 20 years later, it felt like I was right back where I grew up. I even had a friend 2 doors down. We didn't chase ice cream trucks, but we talked a lot. So much so that after 6 months, she told me that the owner said a Black couple applied for my apartment, but she wouldn't rent to them because she didn't want any problems in the building. She'd rather rent to a nice white couple. This is the backdoor benefit of bigotry. I lived in a segregated building in an apartment that should have gone to a black couple if not for the color of their skin and the privilege afforded me by mine. Shaking with anger and guilt, I called a fair housing organization. They said they would look into the matter, investigate to see if there was any racial bias. I texted my friend thinking she'd want to know that the matter was being investigated. So maybe the next person to apply wouldn't be denied an apartment because of the color of their skin. She didn't respond. But later, she called.
I told her that in confidence. I didn't think she was gonna report it. Allie knows me. I'm woke. I don't even see color. I retweet all the BLM hashtags and keep all my followers informed. But just because institutional racism is wrong doesn't mean that it is our responsibility to change how people think. The owners of this building have a right to fill it with whatever color tenants they want, no matter how we feel about it. Now, if Allie wants to go out and protest racial injustice, then I will be right there marching alongside her. Out there. That's where the real fight is. It's not in here. Well, this is a nice building with nice owners who want to keep it that way by bringing in nice people. The owner said we'd get along, and we do. She was looking out for us. I mean, you get that, right?
She asked to stop the investigation. But I wouldn't let it go. I couldn't.
Closed doors cost lives. It's hard to see how close you are to the poverty line until one day you wake up below it.
I'm not the type of person to ask for anything. I suffer in silence. That way, no one had to acknowledge I exist. Like I'm not a person at all. I was homeless living on the streets with AIDS. There's a saying in our community, housing is healthcare. You can't refrigerate medication and nutritional foods that you need to survive living out of the backseat of a car. That's why I applied for a voucher to secure permanent housing. To ensure that the rental properties knew that my rent, my security deposit, my broker's fees was all taken care of. I thought, nobody turns down guaranteed rent money, right? Wrong. When I called around with my voucher, they told me don't bother coming in without a pay stub, and then hung up on me. I got the hint. I stopped mentioning the voucher with them home. When I brought it up in person, they told me they weren't interested in program people, because they had a preference for people, real people. When I asked which landlords felt that way, they said all of them. I decided to meet with an agent that worked exclusively with vouchers. They had a lot of listings, but none of them looked like the one in the window. When I asked to see those, they told me those were for regular people. They didn't see me as a real person. By this time, neither did I. There's only so much you could take where you start believing that you deserve to be hit. There was no more fight in me left, so I just took the first thing that I saw. This wasn't a safe place to take your medicine. This was the type of place where you curl up and die. I accepted it because it's what I deserved. There was dead vermin everywhere, dried up food on the oven. When I called the agency office to tell them about it, they told me that I should just take care of it myself. So that's what I did. If people tell you that you're a piece of shit long enough, eventually you just start to believe it. Till they flush you. You just ask for help from regular people, just so you don't starve.
Justice lies in the eye of the beholder. To many, justice is the Fair Housing Act, signed into law in the shadow of the Lorraine balcony. It's the spark from summer camp that leads to climbing the Capitol steps. To others, justice is a burning cross.
I'm famous, you know? My name's in the New York Times and everything. It's a paper of record. A real estate agent says neighborhood is great for kids. Everybody looks out for one another, and we all know who they belong to. It's a real community within a community. That's the way it used to be in the good old days, the way it should be. It's like a Shangri-La. If you found the statements I made to be offensive, that's your opinion. The letters, this is how this whole mess started. I didn't do anything wrong. I have no problem with the blacks. But people want to live with their own is all. Now they want me to write a letter apologizing for it like I'm the one who makes the world turn this way. I am not a racist. I have never been a racist, nor am I capable of being racist. When we met, I thought you were a beautiful colored couple seeking to purchase a home. Now I know you weren't even real people. Nothing you said was true. How was I supposed to know that telling you about the burning crosses was going to dissuade you from wanting to buy a home here? This job is my livelihood. You can't take my license. I am the least racist person you have ever met. The New York Times, it did a follow-up article, a follow-up story on me. Neighborhood accused in federal lawsuit of using discrimination in order to keep black families out. The agent refused to help a black couple find a home. She told the couple the communities were like Archie Bunker territory. Who doesn't like Archie Bunker? They're trying to spin this into something that it is not to make the neighborhood look bad. I raised my kids here. It is not racist. It is selective. That's what keeps it nice. We don't want garbage here. And it has nothing to do with black or white. I don't have any problem with the blacks. When I was 6 or 7, I was asked to go on a vacation with a schoolmate who happened to be black. I didn't go, but I was invited. I've got black friends and family who married blacks. People just want to live where they're comfortable. That's it. And what gives you the right to say they're wrong if they choose to be around people who look like them? We fight all our lives to get into the suburbs and have a beautiful home. We don't want our property values to go down or crime to go up because low-income people are moving into our neighborhood. One lifelong resident said, if a black moved next door and I want to sell my house, nobody would want to buy it. Even if it's a rich black. They just figure there goes the neighborhood. The lawsuit has heightened the fear in homeowners that the floodgates might open and just about anyone would be able to get in. If they take this away from us, it will be like an invasion, said another resident. Where else is there to go? This guy gets it. You keep taking from us till we have nothing left to take. Well, I'll give you my license. But I will never give you an apology.
Hate is a pathogen frozen in ice. And when the temperature rises, it contaminates the air we breathe. A feeling swelling in the stomach. A sense you've encountered an invisible dark cloud made manifest in the flesh.
He was so casual about it. Like, he was ordering a bran muffin or chit-chatting about the weather. It was the first place I tried to rent on my own. I had a checklist, so I'd remember to ask about rent, security, lease length, utilities. Then all that went out the window. You hear these stories and think they're just myths. People used to scare you about moving into a big city, like finding a razor in your Halloween candy. But for people like me, that danger is real. I could be attacked walking down the street for being who I am. That's how I felt that day. Like, oh my God, it's actually happening to me. In my community, showing your ID is often how the violence starts. It might mean a death sentence if your photo and gender don't match. Once he saw my mismatched ID, the molecules in the room changed. He began to threaten me. I told him my paperwork was in order. I begged him, please let me rent the apartment. I can't go home and I'm not allowed at the shelter. He said he kept a mattress in a vacant unit upstairs. And we should go check the floor plan. Then he grabbed me. I said, don't touch me. I'll call the police. And he laughed at me. He said they just as soon detonate me than help me. He said I wouldn't be calling anybody because I've got nobody to call. My parents probably disowned me, got nowhere to go. So if I wanted the apartment, I would do as he said. I needed that place. It's like being locked in a prison, and that apartment was the key to getting out of my cell. What hurt the most wasn't what he said, but that I wondered if what he said was true. It wasn't. I had somebody to call.
I brought consecutive pay stubs, 2 letters of reference, and my most recent credit report.
I see. I appreciate you bringing all this, but I can't rent to you.
I was counting on this.
There is a vacant unit upstairs. How about I give it to you at a discount?
Discount? How would that work?
My friend Mackenzie was a second-year law student. She let me crash on her couch whenever I was in a tough spot. Mackenzie's professor was a fair housing attorney. When I told her what happened, she said I should meet with them, and I agreed. I didn't want anybody else to be put in the same position I was.
Excuse me?
Come on, we're both adults.
I'm sorry, what is that?
Think of it as a sliding scale we'll use to determine your discount.
I see. Well, you certainly seem to have this all figured out.
It's about what you're willing to do.
Thank you for clarifying.
You're welcome. If you're ready, we can go upstairs now and get
That
started.
won't be necessary. You have the right to remain silent.
What do you think
Anything
you're doing?
you say can be used against you, placing you under arrest.
Now, he'll never take advantage of anyone again because they helped get him off the street. And I just received a letter at my new place with my new corrected ID.
The dark side of our fair housing story reaches back generations. After World War II, American veterans were welcomed home with the GI Bill. They used it to get an education and buy homes with guaranteed mortgages. These affordable VA-backed loans created the middle-class suburbs and ignited the greatest expansion of generational wealth in U.S. history. This represented more than compensation. It was gratitude. A way to show the greatest generation appreciation for their sacrifice. But this appreciation wasn't extended to Black veterans. They returned home to social humiliation, hurled rocks, and targeted violence, including the noose.
I never graduated from high school. I enlisted at 17. The 555th Parachute Infantry Battalion. Yes, sir. The triple nickels. White boys called us monkeys. Said we walked on our knuckles. They even asked if they could see our tails. I seen a lot during the war. I dug graves and buried dead men. I seen some without heads, arms, and legs, but I never seen one with a tail. Can't see much down in that hole. Black, white, brown, in the dirt. Everybody's the same. I wanted to become a tailor when I got back from the war. When I got back stateside, but I couldn't afford the school. Benefits from the GI Bill were never extended to me. So I took a job on the docks during the day and scrubbed floors at a bank at night. And as our family grew, we needed a bigger space. When I found this pretty little house on a tree-lined street with good schools for the kids, that same bank I mopped at night wouldn't give me a loan in the light of the day. Said VA policy prevented me from getting a mortgage in that neighborhood. So I just kept mopping. Moved my wife, Ida, and my kids into a tiny 3-bedroom apartment in projects. Wasn't much, but we made do. My 9 children shared bedrooms and slept head to toe. I just kept scrubbing. Took 15 years to raise enough money to get us out of the projects. When we went to sign the closing papers, we brought the kids. I wanted them to see that although their father was treated like something less than a man, that I kept fighting to even the score. I emptied everything I had inside of me to get that house so I could dedicate my life to filling it up. We adopted 8 more kids and then fostered 130 more. It became our legacy. So a history that wanted to exclude us knows that we exist. Ida got her PhD. She became the president of the State Foster Adoptive Parent Association. And our daughter, Kanya, she became a doctor too. Ida got sick. I kept on mopping. 65 years after I enlisted, I finally got my high school diploma. It made me think about that GI Bill. When they finally broke ground for the World War II Museum, Kanya took me to the ceremony. I'm proud of my service. Even when my body failed me and I could not stand for a country that never stood for me, I went. I wanted my grandchildren to see that even though I couldn't leave them much, I left them that house.
Sometimes securing a place to live isn't the end of the struggle. It's only the beginning.
I found a nice little 1-bedroom. It took some time for me to fix it the way that I liked, but it was mine. It was home. One day, my neighbor knocked on my door. I hoped that it was to bring a housewarming gift or maybe a plate of food. Every night I smelled something delicious coming from her place. She didn't bring me a plate. She brought a message. She said the super told her that a fag lived next door and to watch her husband because I'm going to rape him. Back in the day, neighbors would bring over wine, maybe a pie. People took care of each other. This was not that. I don't tell everybody. I don't let everybody know that I'm gay. But it's not something that I ever thought I had to hide. I never imagined that I would be attacked for being who I am in my own home. It wasn't long after that that the super started harassing me directly. And that's when my nightmares started. He was calling me, names that made me feel like I wasn't safe in my own home. Every month, the super leaves our rent bill underneath the door. And I come home and I saw the envelope there. I opened it and I saw that he wrote fag on it. I don't know why he has so much hatred towards me. I never did anything to this man. I have never treated him with anything but respect since I moved in. Every day, the harassment got worse. Everybody in that building knew what he was doing to me. It was impossible not to. And what made it worse was that my neighbors allowed it to continue. When you turn on the news today, you see horrific images of the elderly, people my parents' age, who are being attacked in the streets as bystanders do nothing but just stand by. That was my life. Threatened and harassed whenever I walked out my door in ways that I can't even talk about, when nobody would do anything to stop it. I went to management. It had gone too far. I didn't want to wait until it got violent. God forbid something happened to me. What, would they step in? Would they step up then? Or wait until it was time to identify my body? Management said that they were working on it. I said, I have a right to feel safe in my own home. Why don't you just get rid of him? They never called me back. Finally, I decided maybe it was time to leave. And then I found another letter underneath my door. The following tenants are petitioning against this man to remove him as a superintendent. We have all agreed that if serious action is not taken by the right parties responsible, we will have no other method than to take legal action through the court. It was signed by every single tenant in the building. They stopped standing by. They took care of me like people used to do back in the day. And I'm glad, because we all came together as a community. And so, since they stood up for me, I decided to stand up and fight for myself. I contacted the local fair housing group. They took my case and they gave me an attorney. A judge issued an injunction to stop the harassment immediately. At that hearing, I learned that the superintendent was attacking me because his child was gay. I thought about everything that he put me through and wondered how this young woman must have suffered in her home to be raised by this man. I hope that she finds the strength to fight and to find a community like I did. All of my neighbors, my friends, even the police officers testified on my behalf at the trial. The super was removed, and a jury of my peers awarded me damages. After the verdict, the jury asked the judge if they could approach me, and they hugged me. And they said that they were inspired by my courage. I finally found my justice.
When the alarm sounds but nobody responds, the building burns.
Sometimes I feel like I'm living in a sitcom and I'm the only one who can't hear the laugh track. We sold our family home and bought a new condo so I could take care of my ailing mother. Ground floor, new construction, which meant that it could be made accessible for me. When we met with the manager, Nathan, I told him exactly what we needed. Lever handles on the entry doors and all interior doors, a path to the accessible patio with accessible French doors so that I could enjoy some fresh air while my mother enjoyed a very modest glass of wine. Lowered light switches on the inside so I wouldn't have to roll around in the dark. Also a roll-in shower for obvious reasons, and commercial low-pile carpeting so I could move around easily. That other stuff is impossible. It's like rolling around in Chewbacca's fur. That's not a lot, right? Okay, so maybe it's a lot. But in my defense, most of the things that I asked for are covered by the Fair Housing Amendment. And I agreed to pay for all of it. I even offered to find a contractor to do the job. So we finalized the deal and put down a down payment. I cannot tell you how empowering that was. Until, of course, management refused to make any of the accommodations that we discussed. Being a wheelchair user, I am used to getting dismissed out in the world, but not in my own home. As construction progressed, Nathan refused to put lever handles on any of the doors. He said that all of the door handles on the property were round and that levers conflicted with the uniformity of the design. He laughed in my face. He said that he refused to make any of my accommodations because they would ruin the aesthetic. Ruin the aesthetic. That's what he said. When he laughed at me, it was like he was telling me I was ruining the aesthetic just by existing. We moved in on October the 1st, the anniversary of my accident. Every year on that date, I try to do something joyful. It was Mom's idea. This was supposed to be a joyful occasion. I am a wheelchair user, but that is only a small part of who I am. Having to rely on my mother to help me get out of my car. Yes, I do drive, and push me up a steep driveway just to get into the house. Sometimes it's difficult to remember that. Fighting for what I needed made that small part of me feel so big. So we moved in with Nathan's laughter seared into my brain. I wrote letter after letter about moving the light switches down so that I could turn them on and off without my selfie stick, about the patio, about the bathrooms, about the driveway, about everything. The weeks turned into months, months into years, and management never even responded. Until this attorney friend of mine connected me with my local fair housing group. They investigated, and guess what? Turns out I'm not the only wheelchair user who didn't fit their precious aesthetic. This company had properties all over the world. Not one of them was accessible. Not even the property that put up the "We Support the Paralympics" banners every year. In the end, it was like a sitcom. Except this time, I got to be part of the laugh track. The company paid a heavy price for violating the Fair Housing Act and human rights laws. Me and Mom, we built an entirely new home, completely accessible and consistent with my aesthetic.
Hope is a virus. If you're not careful, it'll spread. I never caught the hope bug, though. I guess I got what they call immunity to it. Growing up where I did, there wasn't much of a choice. But Jamie was different. Jamie had hope seeping through her pores. First time we met, she promised to take me to the lake. She couldn't believe I'd never been. She said, the lake is free. I said it wasn't about the money, it was about the possibility. It always just seemed closed off, even though it was close. She laughed. Anything closed off to Jamie was just laughable. That's why she thought she can get out of here. When her Section 8 voucher got denied, she refused to believe it. I told her, baby, this is just the way things are. It's just the way it is. This is the most segregated place in the country for a reason. It's a grip that'll never loosen. I seen all the hope leave her eyes at that moment. I mean, she had to let it go. Then one night I come home and I find her on the phone with some white man from the local fair housing organization. And she was saying that Jamie was discriminated against and that he had evidence that white voucher holders were renting the same apartments with no problem. I seen all the hope flooding back up to her. She really believed that he was going to make things right. He came by the house, and as I'm walking him back to the car, I let him know how skeptical I was of any white man coming around this neighborhood saying that he was going to make anything better. I told him to his face that it wasn't going to work. He just got into his car and smiled and said, "We'll see." During the hearing, I show up every day. I sit in the back and I listen as the evidence is being presented. And as time went by, Jamie's case seemed stronger and stronger. I seen all the hope swelling up in her. She even got banana boxes and started planning our move. She said they're moving to a better place would change our lives and change our children's lives. The food they eat, the schools they go to, everything. And I went along with it. There was just so much hope in her eyes. But deep down, I knew the truth. I went to that fair housing man and I said I couldn't stand to see my baby broken after building up this future in our head. And when he asked me how I thought the hearing was going, I just smiled at him. And I said, "We'll see." And we did see. Right when that judge issued his ruling, he said that Jamie didn't deserve to live in that white neighborhood, that she should stay with her own people, where she belonged. He didn't get red or angry. Didn't froth at the mouth or yell and scream. He didn't need to. He was cold and calculated, as if it had just dawned on him that it was his duty to keep us in our place, invested in him by a racist system. Jamie's injunction was denied. I locked eyes with that fair housing man. I didn't say nothing. I just stared at him. I wanted him to see what I see, that there could be no justice in that courthouse, that hope ain't worth the dirt that is built on. Because on the other side of hope, it's just somebody snatching it away from you.
We lost more than a case that day. I was pregnant. Darnell didn't know. I planned to surprise him after we won the case and got settled in our new place. They say your life flashes before your eyes before you die. I saw the life I could have had flash before mine. I saw the life we were going to lead in the new home we made for our child. A doctor won't even treat you without taking your parents' and grandparents' history first. It's malpractice to diagnose you without it. Disease is handed down from one generation to the next. It's like racism that way, passed down to its victims like a baton. Back when I was a little girl, I wet the bed because I was scared to go to the bathroom at night out of fear of the rats running across my feet. My mom worked 2 jobs saving for a home no broker would sell her in a neighborhood they said we didn't belong. Grandbaby sit me when my mom worked nights. She told me stories about getting her teeth pulled at the vet. She had to go in through the back door because if anyone knew they were using tools on Black people, they would stop bringing their pets. Gran wanted better for my mom, like mom wanted better for me, and I wanted better for our child. In the end, we each ended up stuck in the same place, our fate sealed by a caste system designed to keep us confined to our station. I will stand witness for my mother, my grandmother, and my unborn child.
Turns out that the judge who said that Jamie didn't deserve to live in that white neighborhood, he was once a young lawyer, right, for the real estate board. He wrote rhetoric and language into the manual stating that it's the realtor's duty to discriminate against African Americans. Jamie didn't stand a chance. That night, we went home, started unpacking the boxes. Jamie didn't say a word. It wasn't nothing to say. All of her hope was left in that courthouse. Weeks later, she was bringing groceries into the house. Jamie got shot in some drive-by shooting. Had we moved, had she won that case, we would have moved already. Sometimes I think about that judge. Now he denied Jamie's humanity with the strike of his gavel, saying that she didn't deserve to live in a safe place. I wonder, scratch that, I know that he meant that she didn't deserve to live at all.
I came to America to give Emma a better life. But with her dad out of the picture, it was either that or the shelter. And the shelter was no place for my baby. When she got sick, the trailer park was the best place that I could afford. But I was short on the deposit, so the owner said that he would help me out if I needed it, you know? He seemed like a nice man. Until he started asking me about my immigration status. Then he told me how he wanted me to wear my hair. One day, I was with Emma in the kiddie pool, and he asked me to take my top off, then my bottoms. I told him that was inappropriate. And he said I should be grateful. A lot of owners wouldn't rent to undocumented moms with sick kids. That I should show him some appreciation for not calling ICE by coming to his place later that night. I didn't go. That night, when I got out the shower, he was standing there in the dark, staring at me. I told him to leave before I called the police. He didn't say anything when he came toward me. I broke free, grabbed Emma, and ran out into the cold. We got into the car and I drove to I don't even know where. We lived out of the car for a while. But with Emma's condition and the weather turning, we had to go back. I had nowhere to go. And it got worse. He turned off the water and the sewage in the trailer. Then invited me to use the shower if I was dirty. I found reasons to stay away. If we were quiet, I'd sneak us in after sundown for a good night's sleep until I could figure something out. You know, they say that a parent is capable of great feats of strength when protecting their child. I don't know if that's true. But the next time he came, I fought. Then I ran and ran until I couldn't run anymore. I escaped, and I connected with a fair housing group that got me an attorney. We filed a lawsuit. At the hearing, he argued that I was attractive, as if that gave him the right to do whatever he wanted. I won. I put a down payment on the house. He he got prosecuted and jailed. His bank accounts were seized. He lost his property and ended up living out of a car parked in his brother's driveway. Months later, while I was putting Emma to sleep, I saw him on the news. He was convicted of a sex crime. Now I work for that fair housing group to address housing needs and help immigrants like me, so they know that regardless of their status, they're protected by the Fair Housing Act.
The pain of housing discrimination is palpable. It alters lives forever.
The town is divided by railroad tracks. 10-foot hedges wall off a development of townhouse condos on one side, and on the other side, Ralph and his wife. When my kids were their age, they couldn't even plan their next meal. And Miguel and Ralph were fresh out of college and already on track to build home equity. I was impressed. I took their paperwork to the manager for board approval. And it was uneventful until the manager asked about their ethnicity. He told me if we let them cross the tracks, there would be a caravan carrying an infestation of Mexicans from the barrio. He said it was an invasion and it would be the end of the town. And then he threw their paperwork in the trash. It took months to find another buyer. And when they finally did, the townhouse sold for significantly less than what Miguel and Ralph offered. The next day, I gave them the name of a fair housing group and offered to be a witness for them at trial. I have been a broker my entire adult life. And people make comments revealing bias, but I'd never heard anything like this. In the 1960s and 1970s, some white brokers did the right thing. They put deposits down to buy homes for black buyers and then signed them over to combat racism. Well, this was my chance to stand up for what's right. The case was all over the local news. And when the ruling finally came down, I met with my sister to discuss my 30th wedding anniversary. My husband and I had decided to renew our vows, and she was organizing the ceremony. In lieu of gifts, we asked guests to contribute to the fair housing group that brought the lawsuit. And one by one, she told me, our family and friends, people we'd known for years, suddenly pulled out. We canceled the ceremony and had dinner at home with the kids instead.
I remember looking over the hedge and seeing those beautiful condos on the other side. I never thought I'd be able to step foot in one, let alone purchase a home from there one day. Julissa, my sister, Lisa, she didn't have enough space in the barrio and couldn't afford a bigger place to start a family. She wanted a better life for the baby than what we had growing up. We all decided to move in together to save money. When they accepted the offer, it was one of the happiest days of my life. And when they found out we were Latinx, the deal fell apart. Coming from the private sector, I always figured that green was the only color that mattered. But I was wrong. I blamed the barrio for losing the house. I blamed Julissa and Miguel, too, my own family. I took it as a sign that they were holding me back. That I needed to separate myself from them so that no one would ever treat me like garbage again. I got a new job. And when they started calling me Ralph, the name just stuck. And when I got mistaken for being Italian, that stuck too. I didn't mean to pretend to be someone I'm not. But when people treated me differently, it made me feel different. I embraced the privilege because the alternative is to live life as a second-class citizen. I never intended to hurt Miguel or my family. I figured if I became one of them, then they couldn't hurt me again.
Growing up in El Barrio, I always dreamed about becoming a firefighter. I'd pretend to put out fires down by the train tracks. I never wanted to leave. If it wasn't for my wife, Julissa, I probably would have never left. It was always Julissa's plan. We wanted to start a family. And as proud Chicanos, it was also very important for us to stay close to El Barrio because family is everything to us. So we made an offer for the property across the train tracks. They accepted our offer right away. Then the property manager found out we were Chicano, and suddenly our money was no good to him. He left that townhouse on the open market for months until he found a white person to buy it. I blamed all white people for what happened to us and withdrew further into El Barrio, across the tracks back to where we belonged. I surrounded myself with people I knew wouldn't hurt me. Then we gave up looking for homes. I drank too much. I couldn't stop thinking how different our lives would have been had we bought that house. We even stopped trying to get pregnant. Something was broken in me that made me give my worst to the people who deserved my best, and I didn't want that for our child. A few years later, when I was at my lowest point, my mother called. My name was on a waiting list for a fireman's exam I signed up for a lifetime ago. The spot had opened up, but I didn't want it. After we lost the house, I couldn't handle another disappointment. But Julissa kept insisting I take it. I did well on the exam, graduated from the academy, and became a firefighter. I hated what Ralph became, how he let racists make him that way. The judge asked me to describe the injuries caused by the discrimination. I told him, after I graduated from the academy, I was deployed to a wildfire. Here I am, a kid from El Barrio, fighting forest fires on a mountaintop with people of all different backgrounds. And then it hit me. Fighting our way up that mountain, it didn't matter what color they were or what side of the tracks they were from. Covered in ash and soot, we were all the same. My life depended on them because their lives depended on me. Brothers and sisters fighting for a common cause, each other. In that moment, all the anger and the hurt I felt over losing the house drifted away like tiny embers floating in the wind. I realized I couldn't keep closing myself off to people after what happened to me. I was only hurting myself. I needed to let that pain go. And when I finally did, I could finally live my life. It healed my heart.
Healing is only possible when we begin to acknowledge the hurt. It's how we put the pieces together and build a community where nobody is considered less than.
Hi, is that a voucher? I'm so sorry.
Actually, the school district won't
Sorry,
be
there's nothing
Hi,
available.
you should try this outside. You'll be
Don't
safe
go to
with
this
them.
outside. There's been a lot of.
Unfortunately, we have an offer pending. Good luck with everything. Good luck with everything. Good luck with everything.
What am I supposed to do? Open the house.
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 Sons and daughters, freedom for earth, sky and water. Freedom, this is a song about freedom. Freedom for our sons and daughters, freedom for earth, sky and water. Freedom, this is a call for our freedom. Freedom to feel with compassion. Freedom to live, love in action. Freedom, this is a call for our freedom. Freedom to feel with compassion. Freedom to live, love in action. And now I know I can make a change in my life and maybe yours. We need to make the choice to open up all the doors. Why must we feel the pain, misery, and agony when we can all coexist in freedom? Freedom, oh, freedom. This is a call for our freedom. Freedom from mothers and fathers. Freedom to dwell beyond the border. From mothers and fathers, freedom to dwell beyond borders. And now I know I can make a change in my life and maybe yours. We need to make the choice to open up all the doors. Why must we feel the pain, misery, and agony when we can all coexist in freedom?
Visualize what life would be like. Lo diría. Freedom. Libertad. Es lo que siempre hemos buscado. Por eso mi gente se viene a este lado. Amén.
Everyone needs to be free.
eso lo quiero sentir dentro de mí, pero a veces ni se puede sonreír. Pero madre me dijo, mijo, no te agüites, busca la libertad, la tienes adentro del alma, busca la calma, deja que crezca más grande que palmas, no sigas fama, eso no es vida, pídele a Dios y nada será falta. That's what to my mama I'm on, freedom to feel what love, I'm not alone, I know you feel me, you could be strong, put out that gun, put out them drugs, help out your neighbor and go raise your son, go be a leader, student and teacher, see the things that you talk about as preachers, do that right now in the name of your freedom.